All right. Why did I call this channel Creative Rebel? Uh, so I definitely think that creativity is something that, maybe we all need more of, or it's just one of those forces in life that I feel like people think might elude them. But at the same time, I believe it to be a muscle. And we're taught all these ways and all these different things about creativity and who gets to be creative and what does it mean to be creative. Working in ad agencies, you'd be like, oh, the creatives. It just means people that like use Photoshop, or like that's way too big of a burn. I didn't mean it like that. But people mean different things when they mean creativity. But to me, it's basically about problem solving, right? And just like any sort of skill and any sort of problem solving, it can be learned. It's a muscle that you use, and it's definitely something that if you keep working at it, it will start producing results essentially. Um, so why Creative Rebel? Because I've always had this sort of punk rock attitude towards everything. I'm self-taught in most of the things that I do. I'm a skateboarder, a punk guitarist. I worked on the graphic novel series. I could barely draw a stick figure, and I eventually went on to illustrate two 200-page graphic novels. And that's not a flex, it's just kind of going to show how, willpower and having a goal, or at least a vision, can definitely fuel creativity. And I say creative rebel because like doing everything DIY, doing everything in the punk rock way, always trying to either circumvent or break down gatekeepers and gatekeeping has always been something that I've done, whether it's naturally or just because I never understood the concept of gatekeeping, like having to make sure that certain people like you or certain people think you're cool so that you can get opportunities. I don't really work like that. To me, it's all about like wanting to get together, wanting to do fun things, wanting to do cool things, wanting to bring arts to the people, wanting to just create and do. And I don't necessarily think that you have to go to art school in order to be an acclaimed artist. I don't think you need to have to schmooze with the right people in order for someone to think that your art is good. But the problem is, we live in a world where that stuff exists all the time. It's all gatekeeping. It's all about who you know. It's all about getting access to opportunities and to people. And I'm not knocking it. It's just kind of like the way it is. Like, for example, in Detroit, you had to know certain people in order to play music at venues. And me, being someone that just wanted to play music live, I didn't understand that because I thought that if my music was good, or at least if we sounded good enough, that we should just be able to get on a bill. Like, it's not that hard. It's not that weird. Like, why do I need to do all these weird sort of like introductions and this and that just to like play a slot? And so what we did was we started throwing house parties and inviting bands that just felt like playing, and then eventually it turned into a music festival that we started in our apartment building. And basically the rule was if you can play on the date and you want to, then you can play. And we called it Whatever Fest. And essentially it started to turn into basically a feeder festival for the rest of the Detroit scene, because like once people played our festival, or like our local grassroots festival with zero barrier of entry other than us listening to the music and thinking if it's like good or not, or if we believe that there's a capacity for them to be able to play online, for them to be able to play live, because like sometimes people would send in submissions and it's just like, okay, well, does this translate, like are they, do they, can they have a decent setup? Like, because sometimes we'd have people that would submit stuff and they'd show up with an iPod, and it's like, okay, well, that's cool, definitely, but also at the same time, anyways, um, yeah. And the reason that we did that is because I wanted to play shows, I wanted to play live, and I didn't really feel like playing that game. I'm a creative person. I wanted to do what I wanted to do. I'm not gonna like sit around and trying to play a game, just so I can get out there, and show what I got to the world. Um, or even with the book series, right? Every single piece of advice online tells you to start with small comics. Do a 6-pager, do a 8-pager, do a 10-pager, or whatever it is. And I'm not saying that this is bad advice. Maybe it works for most people, but then again, you know, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but if I am a creative rebel, then it's just gonna eventually lean into me doing things my way. And that could be for whatever reason it is, like whether it's mental illness, whether it's just like weird stubbornness, whether it's uh, delusions of grandeur, whatever it is. But at the same time, it's like I knew that I had a story, and I knew that I wanted to do it, and I knew that it needed to be in a graphic novel form, and I knew that it had to be like X amount of pages in order for it to be considered a graphic novel. So even if it was my first project, the project itself was the only thing motivating me to learn how to draw and to want to produce and put this product out into the world. So I essentially rebelled against the notion that I have to just like start small. And again, that could be great advice, and maybe it is good advice, but it wasn't the path that I chose for that project. Um, and I think it's that kind of the mentality of punk rock, just make music, even if you don't know the names of chords, even if you don't know like what staccato means or what vibrato means, or even if you're an artist and a painter and you're not classically trained, there should be no limitation on what you can achieve. But here's a big caveat. I wish I had been to art school. You know what I mean? I wish art school wasn't expensive. I wish that maybe I had taken like a different path and actually gotten classically trained in music or in the arts, because like what you miss out on when you're always just kind of like DIYing and punk rocking your way forward, you can sometimes not have a great base of skills. And a lot of creativity and creative problem solving is skill stacking and knowledge stacking. The more techniques you know, the more ways to apply your method, the more, the more shows you've played or whatever it is, like you stack on the experience beforehand and you get to use all that in your arsenal, and it just kind of like builds up. And so if you really don't have a guide or an intention, it can get kind of easy to just keep doing the same thing. Like if I didn't have the intention of being a better lead guitarist, I might still just be chugging along on like 4 chords, and then I guess that kind of like leads me into another big thing, which is intentionality. I think learning and doing with intention is one of the biggest things that you can do for progress. Like let's say that you're a guitarist, right? And you just say, I want to be a better guitarist. Okay, where is that going to lead you? Whereas if you say, I want to be a better blues guitarist so I can play shows live, now that creates intention. And under that intention is basically a blueprint. So it's like, okay, can you play the blues? No. What do I need to do? I need to learn how to play the blues. And then from there, you start your little research story journey and you figure out how to play the blues. And then it's like, okay, I know how to play the blues. Now I want to play a live show, and then you start kind of going into the rabbit hole of what it takes to play live, or preparing to play live and making sure that you're comfortable, or you're dealing with stage fright or whatever it is, because you have that intention, and behind that intention lies a blueprint that exists and that you have to kind of make for yourself too, because there's so many sources online, there's so many people that are willing to share their expertise. All this social media, like YouTube, is just full of people giving out free advice or tips or lessons. So whatever you want to do, there's probably a way for you out there to learn how to do it, and for pretty cheap at the end of the day, But the trick is intentionality. You need to have an intent. You need to have a reason. You need to have a why. You need to have a motivator. It's like I can say I want to be a better skateboarder, but the more intention and the more clarity I bring into that, the more I can help myself get to that point. Because if I say I want to be a better street skater, that tells me that I have to spend more time practicing skating street. You know, I can't just go to the skate park and think that I'm going to be a good street skater. I actually have to go out and skate street. Um, right now, the things that I'm working on, basically, it's all about a vision, an end goal, and then figuring out the steps that are going to take you there. So just having that intention, I think, is one of the best sidekicks you can have for creativity in general. And the more you practice these things, the more you problem solve, the more you figure out your intentions and the whys, and the more that like these next steps kind of illuminate themselves to you, that's essentially how you move forward and how you can, quote unquote, creatively rebel against whatever forces that exist out there that you think are barriers. And yeah, you know, just a little bit of elbow grease and some good intentions, and you're well on your way to being a creative rebel.